ANC is in its third and final day of its National Executive Committee meeting. Now, yesterday, senior member Newzroom Afrika said great strides have been made in fighting South Africa's energy crisis, with the risk of stage 8 load shedding now ruled out. Other matters on the agenda for the NEC included the upcoming BRICS summit, the party's election manifesto, and the Public Protector's Phala report. So, with only 5 months left of this year, is the ANC starting to tighten its ship ahead of 2024? Let's get your analysis with political analyst Rebone Tau, who's with us in studio this morning. Great to see you as always, Rebone. Thanks for making the trip. And so much to be said about what's been said so far. I wonder if you agree with that, by the way, this idea that the ANC is finally shaping up. Is it true, or are we getting a little bit too excited?
Good morning, and good morning to the viewers at home. I mean, the shaping up should be in what context, because I think that there's still a lot of challenges within the party. That actually shows that in terms of even its renewal mandate, at this conference that they just came from in December, that they are far, from achieving that mandate, because they've not dealt with a lot of issues. And one of the things, I think, for me, which was a bit disturbing, this week when the Secretary General was addressing the media, on the outcomes of the NWC, and a question was asked about Andile Lungisa's tweet, around the Public Protector's report that he had made when it was after it was released. I think the response by the Secretary General was a very immature response, and I'll tell you why. Because you must remember that Phala was discussed by the National Executive Committee before this one was elected, which was last year building up to the December conference, and they could not find consensus, and based on also that report from Parliament that was commissioned, and after that they took it to the conference, and it was very also a bit weird that conference could not deliberate on the Phala report, and then it was said it should go back to the newly elected NEC. And I think between us, sitting here, we've never had the Secretary General in the past 6 months communicating anything around their deliberations, as the ANC on the Phala matter. And for him to criticize Lungisa, I think it's a bit unfair if there's no room in the party for them to have that discussion outside of now what has been tabled by the Public Protector.
Yeah. At the time, the ANC faced a lot of criticism for essentially kicking the can down the road when it comes to engaging on this report. Many might say, at a political strategy point of view, it might have not been a bad idea, because now he's been cleared, A, in Parliament, and B, by the Public Protector itself. But to what extent do you reckon the nightmare for the ANC around this is over?
In my view, I don't think that it's over, because you must remember that if he's cleared by Parliament, in what context? Because, we remember people like Dr. Nkosana Dlamini Zuma, not even supporting, the party mandate, during that sitting in December. They just used pulling tactics, a game of numbers, and that's why former President Thabo Mbeki, even wrote that letter to the Deputy President. And what you need to understand, even how that letter was addressed to the Deputy President, it's not within how things are done in the ANC, because the Secretary General is the custodian of the organization. He runs the day-to-day business. That must also tell us that the former President Mbeki did not have confidence in the Secretary General, and that's why he wrote that letter to the Deputy President of the ANC, and raising concerns on how they dealt with it, in Parliament, and undermining the Constitution and so forth. And that's why you have people like Lungisa, coming out, and Lungisa has been consistent on this matter. But yes, because of politics, some people also have taken a step back, because now you must remember this is a crucial moment, by the way, for the party internal processes of the list conference, because the list conference is coming up, and that's why it was communicated that all conferences must sit by the 31st of July. That's why this weekend we've got the Women's League conference coming up. So after that, now they're preparing for elections. We know of this meeting this weekend. And then the Secretary General also remains central also in this list process of who goes back to Parliament for 2024.
Right. So in many ways, people are kind of making sure they're aligned with the right sides.
Absolutely.
For their own political futures.
Yeah.
The Acting Public Protector has done a number of interviews about that Phala report, and I'm not sure what your take on what she's said is, in a context where it almost appears that her responses to some of the questions, the criticism, have in many ways fueled the controversy around the report, then doused those flames.
Absolutely. I mean, I listened to her interview when she was here the other day.
Yeah.
I was even saying, actually, she should have not agreed to do any interviews at all because she's not convincing. I don't think that she also believes in that report herself.
Yeah.
And you must remember that Mkhwebena's term has come to an end. This, for her, might be a political, advancing a political career because probably she's got interest to be the next public protector. And the timing of releasing the report, it comes at a very interesting time because they're about to do the interviews in the next few months for the new public protector. And what was interesting, you know, when I spoke to some leaders within the ANC who know her, because by the way, she's a former activist of the ANC Youth League, and they were saying, how can she destroy her career at a very young age like this? Because they're not also convinced that this report is actually a report that can be defended, you know, but obviously they can't speak publicly, but they do raise their concerns, some within the party and who are leading at the national level.
Sure, fascinating stuff. Newzroom Afrika, who in some respects spoke in one of the briefings from the ANC yesterday, mentioned that the energy crisis is something that's constantly on the agenda for the party. We all know why. Outside of just how important it is for the economy, it's also an important kind of, I don't know, political tool that could be used in the lead up to 2024. He reckons the worst case scenario is now behind us. I wonder whether you reckon the electorate will be forgiving of the ANC, given the cost it's taken, or the toll it's taken for us to even get here?
We are a very interesting nation.
Yeah.
And a very forgiving nation. And why I say that, I mean, look at the numbers that the ANC got in terms of percentage under the Jacob Zuma era. And you look at 2021, where the ANC got below 49. And this is because at the time the party was highly divided. A Secretary General being suspended, you know, by the party, and you had the Cyril Ramaphosa taking charge. And the question that I always ask myself, are South Africans more tolerant of a corrupt than a divided ANC? Because when the ANC seems to be divided, there seems to be this massive decline, you know. And you must remember also the rural vote. Some have constantly had challenges with the electricity. So it's not really going to, I think, affect the ANC with the rural vote. With the urban road vote, I think they will maintain what they've had, if they don't decline just a bit. But in the main, I mean, if you look at Soweto, there's been areas, you know, where you'll find like Pefin, where they will say there's no electricity for 3 months and so forth, you know. And those are areas, in the urban areas, for an example, that has constantly, for the longest time, Soweto been declining when it comes to voter turnout for elections. But the reality of the matter is that I think at the present moment, people are actually happy that we're now at only like 2 hours a day, right, you know, which is a big relief. So I think South Africans is a forgiving nation.
Yeah, and I suppose any political party will take advantage of that where they can. But speaking about the divide, the wedges being driven inside the ANC, you've got the city press there in front of you. And you and I had a moment to speak briefly about it, and we'll bring it up for our viewers in case you missed it. The front page of the city press this morning is commentary apparently from the deputy president of the ANC, that's Paul Mashatile, who's claiming now that there are people within the organization who want him out, going out of their way to tarnish his reputation. SMSs apparently making the rounds to that effect. He reckons he's not surprised by this. I wonder if you are.
You know, for me, when I look at the CR faction, right, in 2017, they had a deputy president that they did not anticipate, which was Didi Mabuza, which ended up saving 1 term. And again, this time around was a big blow for them, having Paul Mashatile emerging, because they wanted Oscar Mabuyane, but there were divisions within the faction, and I think it's because that faction itself is divided. The center is not holding. That's why you had like 3 deputy president candidates, Kensani Kubai, Lamola, and Oscar Mabuyane. But the reality of the matter is that there's been, I don't know whether Photoshop photos of the DP with women which are of great concern. If they're not Photoshop, I don't know. They've been circulating about his lifestyle and so forth. And I saw a tweet and a Facebook post by Bejane Chauke, who's alleging that there's a fake number that is being used that is similar to his number, that is making him to be seen as that person who's sending those WhatsApps. So that means there's a big problem at the Union building. And this, I think, should not only worry the ANC, but also South Africans of what is really happening. Because if things are like this, within, these guys have been in office for a short period of time, you know, and what does this mean for us as a nation when if there are these tensions and now him coming out publicly in this manner, you know, speaking like this and having those tweets by Benjamin Chauke during the week, you know, saying that he's distancing himself from those fake WhatsApp messages. Yeah, the greater and Benjamin being the president's right-hand man.
Yeah, I was just about to speak about the president. I mean, in the lead-up to Mashatile swearing in, there was that awkward stalemate, right? There had been like these long-standing reports that the deputy president at the time, David Mabuza, had already expressed his interest in leaving the union buildings, but for some reason, Cyril Ramaphosa was holding on, with people suggesting that he himself is trying to come up with a second plan to ensure that it's not Mashatile who replaces David Mabuza, despite the outcomes of the conference. I mean, I wonder how you reckon we should reconcile all these different developments in the context of Mashatile's own admission that he reckons there's people started with a target on his back.
You know, there's a lot of versions on this, and I want to go back to what you have just mentioned, the issue of the delay of him being swearing in. There were rumors or allegations that he also wants to push the president out, you know, because of this Phala thing, that the president must not come back after 2024. So there's a lot of mistrust amongst them, you know, as leaders of the ANC, and allegations are being made by the certain grouping and this group, you know, which, as I still maintain, it's very unfortunate for South Africa, but that we, as the nation, always have to suffer because of political differences that are happening within the ANC.
Absolutely, and we'll see what the outcome finally is when it matters most, some people might say, which is in 2024 at the polls. But for now, Rebone Tau, thanks very much indeed for coming through and helping us think through these many different things. There's that ancient old saying that very few people know what is actually taking place in the ANC. And I suppose it rings true today as it does when it was first mentioned. Once again, Rebone Tau, thanks very much indeed for coming through.